Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to talk through our the title of the session, Support, Creativity, Community and Evolution over Multiple Phases. And by that we mean during the COVID time. And we start really with a quote that was overheard in the corridor by a member of staff earlier on this year about the year 2020 and how it hasn't exactly panned out as expected. I think it was the biggest understatement at the time. But little did we know at that point what we have in store for us over the coming weeks and the coming months. For us today, there's four of us that are going to speak. Myself and Alan are deputy head teachers at the school, and we take over proudly as co-head teachers in January 2021. And we're going to give you the context of the lockdown in terms of our school and what it meant for us. We've got Ruth Brown with us, who's going to do a small session on developing creative provision for vulnerable children. And Rosie as well is going to do student stories and a fantastic piece on the oral history of lockdown and what that means for post-COVID community. And you can see our very flattering pictures there. They were actually painted by students within school that Ruth's going to go on and talk about a little bit more in detail, which I think there's a particular well likeness to all of us. My beard was a little longer at the time, but it is at this point quite good within there. So the context for us as a school, we are the most northern English 11 to 18 school in England. Our size is about 1,500. We serve a catchment the size of Greater London geographically, and we have 16 feeder primary schools that tie into us. And we do serve, we don't hide from the fact that we serve one of the least deprived counties in the northeast, but actually the direct area we serve in some instances is some of the most deprived in the county, and deprived not just in an economic sense, but also in a cultural sense and in a technological sense, which made COVID and lockdown especially difficult within there for many of the reasons that are on the screen within there.
So just in relation to our catchment as well, just made me think there, unplanned almost. Part of our lockdown process was senior members of our school staff driving around the county with Chromebooks for children on little bus trips out, a car full of Chromebooks, and then dropping them off at gates at the end of driveways and things in the wildest of Northumberland and in the hills. And that was an interesting couple of days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
So we're actually presenting in a room. I know it means absolutely nothing to you, but we're presenting in a room in school that we, certainly James and myself and the business manager in particular, were sort of locked in for 48 hours before we knew it was coming, that school was going to close. We anticipated, and we spent 40 hours in this room. And it wasn't until we returned to this room a few weeks back that there were still to-do lists on the wall, which were amazing to see. So, things we needed to do before we closed. So it was a nice reminder of how far we've come. But as you'll see on the screen here, we split originally into 4 phases. The immediate closure, which came and we were well planned for, but then looking at words and language is really important, and you're going to get that throughout the whole of today's presentation. And any worker, if you came and visited the school, the words that we use and the phrases that we use are very specific, because that's the power of words. And we reiterate things with children and with staff. We make sure we use the right terms and the right phrases, so there's a consistency and an understanding across the whole of this. So for example, this is a toolkit taken from one of our toolkits. And phase 2, we looked at something called reconnect, a very deliberate phrase of reconnecting children with the concept of being educated, and that not just being coming back to school. And then, as you can see there, in terms of phase 3, we then had a repair curriculum, and our repair curriculum was based exclusively on allowing children to have time and space and support to look at where they may need repair in their curriculum. And that might be specific to education, but also just to their emotional well-being and needs. And then as time went on, we changed our phase 4 to September. So when we knew that September was when we were going to be returning to school, it became September. So everyone knew that we had a full return. And for us, we were lucky, we're fortunate in the respect that we have a new building in school. Our whole school is a new build, sorry. And that allowed us to frame the school in such that children could be distanced in bubbles throughout their education as they currently are being educated. But it allowed for us to say, actually, this now, we have reconnect, we have repair, and now it's all about restoring all the lost things that might have come. And as we move on, as this term, what we're seeing is we're able to appreciate what that was lost, we've been fortunate enough to remodel our curriculum in such a way that has allowed us to incorporate all the great things that you're going to hear about this afternoon. We were fortunate, James and I were fortunate in that process as well. The retiring head teacher of the school had announced his retirement at Christmas, and his anticipation was he would leave in the summer. But he stayed on for this term, and we were successful to go through during lockdown through the process of becoming co-head teachers for January. So that's allowed us to work closely with the staff you'll hear from today to make sure that culture, community, and creative elements are integral to what we do throughout the curriculum and in the classroom.
Well, just been noticed there on the chat that the screen wasn't shown. I just want to go back and highlight the fantastic drawings of the students within there, because we realise now that when I was talking about my beard, some of you might not know what I was talking about within there, but these are some of the pieces of work that some of our students created during this time under the directorship of Ruth, and they are fantastic. And certainly for us, when we look back, and as Alan said, we're looking back very much today over the work we've done. We look back with real fondness over that time. We had some of the greatest relationships we ever had with students during that time. We just really wanted to share kind of a graph. This was our attendance to Skeleton School, which is our key worker and vulnerable children's school within the establishment. And you can see that it slowly crept up as the weeks went on. And we do put this down to the quality provision we were providing. The more word that got out there in terms of the community, the more children that were coming to us, and we were never turning students away at any point during this. You can see that there's a dip, and we found that, especially on a Friday, attendance to school would really dip. But it also shows that on any given day, we just simply didn't know how many children we were going to get in that day. So it meant we were a little bit fluid in the work that we did and the plan that we did for that. Certainly to concentrate on phase 3, this is the period of time from June onwards, 15th of June, to the end of the school year. We're running 3 schools from the site. We're running virtual school, which is our normal protocol through Google Classroom, and students were completing work, and some fantastic work was completed during that time, especially in the creative arts. We're running a skeleton school on site, which was different activities that really were looking to engage students from a variety of abilities, thrown together in bubbles and being taught in small groups of 5 or 6. And then we're also running Reconnect, as Alan touched upon there, which is about that reconnecting with students in year 10 and year 12, looking forward for their education in the next year. So they were the kind of 3 elements of us.
And then, so from September, as you can see, and so this is the phase we're currently in, being a fully operational school. There's a key focus on the things you can hopefully now see on the screen. And I suppose the overwhelming message for us here was that Maston quote from 2001, that the ordinary magic of schools is important for us. We didn't have to go out of our way to try and make school something it's never been, or something it wouldn't ever be in the future. For children, just being in school and the ordinary magic involved in being part of school, the experiences that they have, the wonder of learning new things, all of that would very much be the focus of what we expected from our classrooms. And for want of a boring, almost technical element, we stayed away from assessments, and we've said everything was going to be about children coming back and us supporting them to be back in a community, having been removed from the community for 7 months. As you can see on there, a blended learning approach. We still have access to our Google Classroom resources, and that's something we've learned from lockdown and how we'll use that moving forward. And for children who can't access school for whatever reason, whether they're isolating now as being a contact for someone who has COVID, or whether they're off themselves, we now have a blended learning package. A big emphasis on the recovery curriculum for vulnerable children, focusing on reading and literacy, and how we use some of our additional funding that's coming to school to make sure that children have not fallen behind from not hearing other people reading out loud themselves, and writing as frequently as they would have. And then as we move on, that model then sits into this. So we're currently in the reimagination and reform, and this is, I suppose, for those of you who aren't in schools or aren't in schools full time, where I suppose it's a bit more relevant for you into where we now fit what we're doing for the long term at the Duchess School into the reimagination of what normal will be, and what a discontinuous shift. So a shift now, we've got this opportunity, and we have taken this opportunity to move away from a type of curriculum delivery, a type of assessment model, a type of feedback, all of that. We've taken the opportunity to move into something different, into an area we feel is better all round for our children and our community. Go on.
Yeah, and I guess that, you know, for us, really, it gave us an opportunity. You know, we talk about COVID bonuses, and part of the COVID bonus at this school is it really gave us an opportunity to review what we currently do and to look forward to what we want to do in the future from the direct experience we had during that skeleton school period and the reconnect period. You can see that our broad curriculum aims of having cultural capital, creating a healthy democracy, and allowing students to see that all is beautiful in the world were very much the aims of skeleton school in itself. I had a fantastic conversation today at lunchtime with Caitlin, a young girl in year 8, who's part of our skeleton school cohort, and was talking really passionate about some of the experiences she had during skeleton school that she's never had before, and that she now knows, you know, about the world. And you know, she went on a fantastic nature trail walk on one of the days and came back and did some fantastic drawings on the back of that. That's the experience that we wanted to give children, and we're really proud of the fact that we gave them that there. It also moving forwards, and obviously, as we've said before, you know, for us from January onwards, we've kind of penned down what we believe our teaching principles within school are. This is a way that, you know, it's not a tick list of how teachers should act in lessons, but certainly it's a go-to menu of teaching techniques, teaching tools that staff may use. And at the very heart of that, and deliberately placed in the middle column, is the 5 habits of mind that Ruth's going to go on to talk about in a second within there. For us, this is the key to unlocking some of the potential of our students, and certainly the key to us reimagining what our school looks like in the future. You know, we're very, very excited under Ruth's stewardship to see how that moves forward for us. We now are kind of tiered approach to recovery using the EEF work, where we break it down to teaching, targeted academic support, and wider strategies. Within all of this is the key belief that no student should be left behind, and that we should continue to focus on our key core curriculum offer, on our aims of our curriculum, but also looking at picking up students that may have fallen behind slightly during that lockdown period, but still giving them rich experiences as we move forward.
Hello everyone. I'm going to be talking to you about developing a creative provision for vulnerable children. What seems like a lifetime ago, in the summer term of 2019, I was asked a question. It was regards to the work that we were doing with our priority students, with our vulnerable students, and why we were being really successful with them. And whether or not, if we bottled it, what would it look like? And if we had bottled it, how would it look like in other areas? And really, that's how the life of Create really started. And we started thinking about how we could reintegrate our new year 7s coming in, how we could give them a very different experience within their new school setting, and also how we could really deepen their learning experiences while they were in school. We noticed there'd been a little bit of a dip really with our higher students, so say our Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5, in being able to ask really rich questions about either themselves, their opinions, their values, etc. And we were very keen that the incoming Year 7s actually set the tone really for the work that we wanted to do with them, and to really to explore what the world and wider school partnerships had to offer them, and really create and the ethos of the 5 habits of mind really helped us switch the focus from being exclusively skills-based, which largely had been before and really successful with it. Our young people were really skillful and could produce really great work. But what we felt was that they needed the depth that the 5 habits actually allowed them to have. And what that's really helped us to do through, I suppose, changing our mindset about not assessing their work through necessarily skills-based forums, not necessarily showcasing this is a really great example of drawing, or this is a really great example of sculpture. What we've actually encouraged our then Year 7s to do was to really work together to explore how their skill sets collaboratively can work together to produce better outcomes. That actually they had value in their capabilities, that actually their hard work was paying off, and it wasn't necessarily the best piece of work, traditionally the best piece of work, which actually was the most interesting piece in that particular lesson. And the Habits of Mind model really enabled us to broaden our understanding of what we felt a Duchess student looked like or should be. And we used really the teaching practice and creative teaching, practice and learning that we were exploring as a vehicle to really improve our students' communication skills. What we found was that a lot of our vulnerable students are students who maybe had really switched off to the idea of being creative because in the past they hadn't been successful, or they've been taken out of those lessons at primary school to do additional learning in other areas, or because they couldn't behave in the classroom. They were really frightened of actually letting go and actually just coming and exploring new things, which then obviously had a knock-on effect for their behaviour in school. And we were wanting to really work with those young people because over time we found that actually they produce the most interesting, the most vibrant work once they actually open up to the possibility that they can do it. And the habits of mind was really, I suppose, a mindset that we started to use within the classroom, a language that allowed more thematic-based inquiry, which allowed those children to be able to access at their own level and at their own pace. It also allowed us as a team to really look more collaboratively. So we were looking, instead of just saying this is art, this is music, this is textiles, suddenly became a very shared experience that the children would experience. So they were working in a creative area and it wasn't pigeonholed, and sometimes their music would inform their art practice. Sometimes their art practice would inform their textile work, or their artwork would go back to creating scores within the music. And this really excited my team. This was something that we were very passionate about. This is something that we felt would engage the most switched off of young people, because it was engaging us. It was something that was fluid. It was something that was allowed planning with the students to see where they wanted to take projects. We weren't being precious with things. We weren't having great expectations on what the outcomes could be, but it did allow them to really have that thinking time and allow that investment, I suppose, in themselves and each other, and really help to improve their listening skills, their investment in the subjects generally. And actually, it was just joyful to really watch them sort of open up and start to talk to each other, talk to our team, and really start to think about the world generally and what they could offer it. I put in there, be more kid. That was a really kind of key thing for us. That sense of awe and wonder, because it should be. Being creative isn't just about sort of locking up a door and say that's my answer and off you go. It is about really going and picking the world around you, making sense of it, communicating, asking those tough questions, etc. And this idea of awe and wonder, certainly for me, comes out of a sense of investigative play and thinking about sort of early years learning, and in particular for me, Montessori teaching and learning, where actually children are allowed, they're given tools and they're allowed to explore under their own steam. And for me, that really resonated something, particularly with the habits of mind, because I found over the years, many of our vulnerable students are really play deprived. If they haven't had that opportunity of play at a younger age, how can we really expect them when they come into secondary school? They don't just morph into this compliant student. And if you're giving them equipment and materials that are just too enticing, really, unless they have that discipline, that self-discipline, that's something that is taught within their I suppose, their areas, their classrooms, working with their teachers, so that they're able to really manage that to create something really quite special. But the idea of play is a really important way of being creative. And this is something that we were keen to really harness. We felt it was really right at this time to sort of change our curriculum. So year 7, it seemed right, they were a new intake year group. They had no expectations of what we had to offer. And it felt right to really base their learning around thematic inquiry. And it was all based around these 5 habits of mind. We wanted them really to come into the classrooms, be excited, be engaged, talk to everybody, talk to each other about their work. And we, at the end of the first term, which we happened to look at Popular, we thought we'd choose something that was a very sort of open aspect of culture that they would be able to engage with. So in music, they were doing pop groups. In art, they were looking at kind of pop culture generally. And in textiles, we're looking much more about a colour pattern, etc. And they created whole little textile villages, which are really quite sweet, really. And they were starting to really get this, and they came together at the end of that term, not really knowing what they were going to bring at the end of it. And we put on an exhibition for them. And it was a really powerful experience for those students because one, they weren't used to everybody having something on the wall. And we used one of the biggest rooms that we have in school to showcase their work. We invited their family, we invited their friends, their grandparents, and over 100 people came to see their children's work. And it was lovely just being able to walk through and listen as their parents were listening to their compositions, reading about their research, reading about their understanding of culture generally. And the pride that the children were showing, because they're like, I didn't realise you were interested in what I had to say. And it was also lovely seeing their peers go around and actually experience this. And this really got us sort of thinking about where we could really take this new model and this practice. Which takes us to CCE. Now, CCE are a company who work in a really, really diverse international platform looking at creative learning. And we were really keen as a team to work in partnership with an organisation that would really help embed both our thinking about the habits of mind, but also about creative learning generally, so that we could really sort of drill down on what was essential to us. And working with CCE helped to shape these thoughts. We were able to really realise the full potential of the habits of mind and the idea of a high functioning classroom, working with CCE's mentors. And really we could actually more objectively see how children could be co-developers of a curriculum. And that was a really refreshing realisation to come to, that it wasn't just, oh, we'll build a curriculum for you because we think this is a really good thing for you to do. We actually would build a concept and we would go to the children and we would start to build that in unison with them. And we weren't precious about what the outcome was going to be. We would take it on a journey. The project that we actually coined with CCE was all very much about deepening their classroom experience, building a project where the students would lead, explore, collaborate and engage with community and a sense of identity. We felt that year 7 really needed to have that sense of belonging. They were in a new school, a new environment, and they had to feel that this was take ownership of their own space within school. And that was really important to us. Making the Mark, which was the project that we actually developed, was born out of exploring the idea what it was individually to make your mark, what that looked like for you personally, how that looked like within the community setting, what legacy looked like, what heritage looked like, and actually sort of long-term aspirations. And it was about really understanding the community around them, how they could bring that sense of purpose as a young person, how they could have a much more positive impact within their community, and how school and age could be explored through different generations. So we were actively encouraging them to go and talk to different generations, to really talk to each other, to find out about people around them. And this also linked a lot of the cultural heritage work that Rosie will talk about a little bit later. And this idea of a sense of belonging and citizenship. We are very much a community school, and we felt that our children had to really link this idea of a community within school as well as outside of school. And we started with this idea that each form group would be a tribe, and each tribe had their own identity. And that broader identity was this idea that it's a whole collective group of year 7. And we had some absolutely amazing bits and pieces planned and exhibitions, and we were going to take it to London and we were going to be at Taste Exchange, and it was all incredibly exciting, and then COVID hit, and which paused everything, sadly. And then there's big questions that have loomed. How do we've done all this great stuff, we've got to this point of trying to realise this project. We understood the impact it had on our children, and we know we could actually measure that impact, which was amazing, because a third of our children, particularly our vulnerable children, were achieving a third high at the same point in the year than the previous year group. And most importantly, boys were really achieving very highly. Behaviour results were down, and actually just they were genuinely engaged, and that was such a big thrill for our team. The problem then came, how do we harness what we've just done, keep the momentum, and also give high quality work and experience when they're not here, when they're not in school, when they're not able to have practitioners in front of them How do we support that both in a virtual school and in a physical school? How do we maintain those standards and those challenges? How do we build that kind of capacity and resilience in our students? We have such a wide demographic, as James and Alan have described, that it's almost impossible to give an equal starting point for any of our children. However, I think as we engage in conversations with our young people, it became really clear about how much time students were spending behind the screen, their lack of movement during the day, increasing anxieties, tensions at home, lack of social interaction, and loss of routine became quite an overwhelming feature of some of the feedback we were getting from our young people as we were setting them work to do at home. So my team and I sat down virtually through a screen, and we had a really good conversation about what were the core values that we gained from looking at the habits of mind. What did we want to take forward? What was possible for our young people? And we eventually came up with some short thematic-based home learning, project-based learning, which gave them choice, helped them to develop research. It could be accessed or created during their 1 hour daily walks. We encourage conversation between generations. Many of our young people, if they're stuck out on perhaps farms or in rural communities, were often either separated from different generations, but obviously through technology we're starting to talk an awful lot more. They weren't attached to their screens. We asked the children to log their work digitally in a sketchbook. That was a novel thing, trying to explain to them how to get a digital sketchbook up and running. But once they got it, they realised that actually they could showcase their work instantly. And these sketchbooks became almost scrapbooks of lockdown for them. They had drawings, they had ideas, they had poems, they had photographs, they had songs that they created, their little video pieces, and they were really rich and highly personal for each and every student who accessed that. We asked them to make choices about materials used. Not every child has access to art materials, we know that. So we asked them to think creatively about how they create art, what was important about making art and creative work. And we encourage them to find just everyday objects, to explore basically the world around them and document their experiences. The impact particularly was noticeable with Year 7. That's no expectation, that's no surprise, I suppose it was our expectation. But their work was incredibly powerful. And what I found was where we had tried or trialed with older year groups, the habits of mind and the thinking behind that and the passion, if you like, from the team, they equally returned really high quality thinking, creative practice. Where we had still our traditional approach, it maybe wasn't as rich, maybe it wasn't as risk-taking. And I think that was the biggest thing. They were much more independent in the way that they approached their learning. They were much more engaged in it. They were much more excited by it. It was much more personal. It wasn't a chore, basically. Skeleton School, and here are a few of our lovely students at Skeleton School, had to do that and more. They were our most vulnerable students. They were students who were having to spend an awful lot of time away from family for a whole various reasons. They were in school 8 hours a day, there or thereabouts, and possibly in school in the most weirdest environment ever imaginable. School had to become a safe haven for those key students. We had to create opportunities for social interaction. We had to develop and help and develop their mental and physical resilience, and to try and build a balanced curriculum, which is no mean feat when you've got mixed year groups, students who possibly don't ever want to be at school at the best of times and yet suddenly are having to come to school every single day. And it's just strange. There's nobody there who perhaps their friendship groups aren't there, they're not able to operate in the same way. And they have to do some work as well, which they were not thrilled about. But it went back to that idea that we were as the staff came in and did a kind of rotation around Skeleton School. I have to say I absolutely adored my time in Skeleton School. I wish I really could give more to it than I actually did, although I did feel I had every member of staff in my dining room at some point. It became really evident that our children really craved creativity. They really needed a different output They needed those walks during the day. They needed to do their bit of sport during the day. They needed to go and have social interaction at some point during the day. But it was very, very evident that they needed also to have that extra input, that extra little something where their skills, their capabilities could be tested in a totally different way. And what we found was that students who were starting to do cooking, they were doing just dance, they were looking at art, they were knitting, they were doing sport, they were doing film work, really started to open up. They really started to become the people that we aspired them to be. They started to let us in, basically. On the screen there, you'll see some portraits, and they are the result of a project that we ran and incorporated their Arts Award into it. We've been an Arts Award Centre for many years, and it's a scheme that we absolutely adore running. And it's one where we often use predominantly with a lot of our DA students. We've had an awful lot of success with them, with many who normally will not engage necessarily with a lot of members of staff, but actually having the opportunity to come in and do an Arts Award in a creative area. Suddenly they've seen what they can do, what they can achieve, and be successful and move forward and build relationships, and they are moving through that Arts Award structure at the moment. And we've got a wide range of students doing everything from Discover up to Gold at this current level. For Skeleton School, the Arts Award Discover at Home was a really great fit. It was accessible, it was something that they could tap into as they were coming in every day, and Jenny Hines, who's a really amazing teacher in my team, and I had a little chat about how that could be used. Jenny was very, very keen to promote the arts within Skeleton School to really give some sort of impact and some creative output for those children. And she felt that doing self-portraits would be a really lovely way of recording their time at Skeleton School. So Discover at Home was a really good vehicle for that. And she started this project and thought maybe there'd be about 10 portraits by the end of it. And I think we're currently on 70 plus at the moment, and it's still growing because we're still finishing some off at the minute. But what initially started as a journey started to uncover this kind of vibrancy of character of each child. And they really did capture something about each and every child involved in that project. Some of those children are very, very private. Some of them will not engage with any member of staff. Some do not talk to members of staff. Some will never set foot in the classroom for more than 5 minutes. Those children would sit unquestioned. Member of staff would maybe be in there also painting, because we had so many. And we would be chatting. We slightly didn't necessarily get the cups of tea and the cake out, but it was pretty much on those kind of lines. We talked, we listened to each other, we found out different things about each other, and it was just the most special environment. And the skills and the qualities and the capabilities that those children got from doing these portraits, the look of awe and wonder on their faces was just incredible as they saw what they had produced at the end of that. And that really, to me, that project in a nutshell, sharing that with members of staff who maybe hadn't seen that developing from different parts of Skeleton School or doing different parts of teaching for our young people. To see it collectively was just empowering. To see the response, the positive feedback for those young people just set them off on a different track. For some of those young people, it was the first time that they really had a sense of ownership and sense of place and sense of belonging. And for me, that perfectly summed up exactly what we were trying to achieve. I suppose the impact I've talked about quite a lot. For those who are unfamiliar, these are the 5 habits of mind that we work to. What we found, and I'll continue to find, because this is very much a journey for us, this isn't, job done. We've incorporated now Create into Year 8, and we've also added drama into Year 7, which is proving to be a really exciting addition to that particular year group. Impact for us, as you can see, improved attainment in learners. It's a sustained investment. It's really exciting to have it as one of our core principles within school. It's really exciting that it's become certainly habits of mind, have become a vehicle in which to explore creative learning within school. I think it's a deeper understanding of self for those children and for the staff involved. Excitingly for us, subject cross collaboration. We love doing that. We love going to see what other people can do, and I hope they like working with us half the time. We're a little bit nutty at times. It's special to celebrate children's work at any point in the year, but to have whole year group celebrations, which unfortunately we had to just obviously curb a little bit because of COVID, kind of got in the way. So instead we flipped it, and we've developed a website which hopefully will be going live to showcase their work in all areas, and that's an ongoing thing to showcase their work. Future, we'd love to see create across all Key Stage 3 and all those values embedded across Key Stage 4 and 5. We'd love that across all subjects, but certainly that was the desire to have it certainly in our creative area. Further cross-curricular work with our external partners, of which we are very thankful to have a huge amount of work with, and hope to continue with that in the years ahead. Further establish creative learning within the whole school framework. It's a powerful tool. I'm very passionate about it. And continuing really to develop our priority students, our priority children, a bespoke curriculum. It suits them, it gains their capabilities, it gains their confidence, and hopefully have a strong and lasting skill set. Rosie.
Thank you, Ruth.
You might just want to move the cursor in case the screen dies because it doesn't go on the
Great.
actual, no, on the actual thing.
Thanks, Ruth. I'm here to just do the last part of the session. We're going to show you a video in about 3 minutes, which will cover a lot of the things that James and Alan mentioned about students' experience of coming into school for the first time during lockdown, and a lot of what Ruth's been saying about what they got out of being in Skeleton School. So I'll be sharing their stories with you. Originally, back in June, when we planned to do this talk, I'd written down this phrase, our place as a school in a post-COVID community. And of course, the word post, I think at the time I envisioned it would all be done, and that's definitely not the case. So post-COVID-19, meaning we are now still living in this post-COVID time, and it's going to go on for us, we don't know how long. So rather than putting plans on hold, we've just got to work with it. So my role in the school, I'm an English teacher 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week, I'm culture and community coordinator. It's a role that's in part funded by the school and in part funded through the Duchess High School Trust, who have done general fundraising, and there was a grant from the Garfield Weston Foundation which pays partly for the 2 days. The role, when it was first envisioned, it's designed to bring cultural opportunities to students, in particular our priority students, those who are most vulnerable, to equalise and increase the cultural capital of all students, build stronger links between the school and our community partners, ensure that every Key Stage 3 priority student is involved in at least one cultural and or community project. So we target those students, but often opportunities are open to other students as well. I also spend a lot of time coordinating and liaising between people, because there's a lot of projects already that exist in school, and as many of you will know, teachers give up their spare time, their additional time, what spare time they have. Hopefully my role helps to lighten the burden for those teachers a little bit, but without taking over their projects. And finally, to evaluate the projects that we do and try and measure the impact of those, which obviously helps us move on with future things. So that's my role, and I know a few people earlier in the week were asking about that, so hopefully that outlines what it is. I think we're very lucky, obviously I think we're very lucky to have my role, but it's a really valuable amount of time, and it just helps coordinate things. I think in particular it works well because I'm from this area. I came to this school as a student, and having worked here for quite a long time, I think that makes all the difference, that I don't just come in for 2 days and not know the students, but knowing the staff, knowing the students, knowing what already goes on. I think it really helps. Okay, so prior to COVID-19, on the left, these are some of the projects that we've been involved with, some of the organisations we've been involved with. Some are cultural, some are more community-based. At the end, if there's questions about specific ones of those, I can talk about projects that we've done, but we haven't got that much time. The ones that we planned for sort of March onwards are on the right-hand side of the screen. Some of these are ongoing. For example, the OGA, Association for Gaff Rig Sailing, but we're halfway through building boats at the moment. It's on pause at the moment, but that's ongoing. Other ones have just come up in the last few weeks, and some are due to happen, but we haven't been able to for now. And again, I could probably, if anyone wants to know something specific, we've found ways to continue certain projects, even if we can't go out on trips. Some of the barriers, just very quickly, we can't have visitors in school at the moment, we can't take students out on trips, and we can't mix bubbles. So whereas previously we might have had different students, different year groups together, now we can't do that. But what we can do is we can have online visits and meetings, and being a rural school, that works quite well for us because it costs a lot of money to get a bus anywhere. We can bring projects in-house, so host our own exhibitions, and we can do projects with whole year groups in communal spaces such as the dining halls, so they get seen by big numbers of people. And we're planning for things for 2021, and we're trying to say yes to as many things as possible, even if we don't yet have the solutions to how they're going to happen. We want to talk to people and try and find ways. So the final part of our presentation today is a video. I think Danny is going to share the link in the chat, and she's going to play it from her end because she's got slightly better bandwidth. And this is the voices of the students themselves, and I think they've got some really valuable things to say. So over to you, Danny.
It's been worrying me over the last 14 weeks.
The corona thing. I'm scared my family get it. Because one member of my family's already died to it, so. It's a bit more scary to me at the minute because we're just kids, so we don't really know about it, but it's just very scary. I'm just worried. I don't know why, but I'm just a bit worried.
Worried that my family's gonna get it and then they were gonna die and stuff, but none of them have. But my mum's had it, but she's been fine. So I'm just worried that's never gonna end, and I won't be able to know anything when I go back to school, like proper school.
Because my mum doesn't have that much of a social life, and so she doesn't really understand why I miss seeing my friends so much and why I'm on the phone to them really late. And I'm just because that's the only way that I can talk to them. So she doesn't really understand, because me and my mum just argue about stuff in the house.
Because I kept crying all the time because I just missed all my friends, and it's hard because I couldn't go out anywhere or I had to stay in the house, and obviously I couldn't see my grandparents either, so that's quite hard.
Probably my family mostly, because it's been a lot of arguments and just not very good. It's mostly because we can't really go out and see anyone different.
Saying we're not getting along like we did before because we're sick of each other.
I was sitting on my bed and I was just getting so agitated over things that was nothing. I kept shouting at my mum and stuff because I was getting so agitated. The first week we started it, I was getting really good at it, getting up for 8 and starting for 9. But once I've done it, I just started getting bored of doing it. It wasn't good, because it was hard to do on the computer because I didn't know how to do my work, so it was hard. But then when I came to school, I thought it was much easier because I had a teacher there to support me if I needed help or I needed ask a question. My mum and my dad don't know very much because obviously I haven't been to school for that long, so better to come to school.
Well, because when we first started school, you were still allowed to see people for a week. And so I was going on bike rides with my friends to fill in the time and not use it wisely. But like I was really happy to be off school at the start, and I was just like, oh my god, thank god I'm off school. I want to be at home and that. But then as I started to get in, I was just like, oh my god, I can't wait to go back to school. I miss my friends, and I'm sick of looking at a screen non-stop.
Well, at home it wouldn't be as easy because my mum didn't really know what to do. So now when I'm at school, the teachers help me a lot more.
I've had to come in, but I've sort of wanted to come in as well.
Yeah, I got told that I had to
because I wasn't doing my work.
I just feel better at school than at home because I get bored very easily at home.
You get to do stuff instead of sitting around. That's been changed a bit more. When we first started, we had to sit down at the computers all day, but now we've got activity packs so we can get up and do stuff.
At school, I think if I'm honest, I'm more likely to ask for help, but also like I do a lot more.
So I feel like I've managed to get better than what I was, because I get my work on paper now because I was struggling to do it online. So I've got it on paper and it's much more easier because it's more to focus on.
Here there's like a lot more people and there's teachers, and I feel like I kind of have to work a lot harder.
I find it's a bit more easier because I know that I'm at school, and then it fills in my time better. Like it's better to get back into a routine. I was like not going to bed till like 1 in the morning because I wasn't tired. But now when I'm coming back from home, like when school finishes, and I'll be like so tired, I'll just go lie in my bed.
The best thing's been seeing them getting to know each other, and the difference in age, the mixing of age groups.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think we've got it so right. I think when it hasn't worked, we've immediately had that like dialogue about this work, this didn't, let's tweak this, let's see if we can do that. It's been a moving target, and we've always kind of adapted to the children that we've had in, and looked at what's worked and what hasn't, and worked with the staff that have been, and looked at what their best fits are as well, so they can put those over. So when we've got good art teachers and they can do some stuff, when you've got somebody who's really good with the PE department, they can do some.
I think the other thing, level of respect between staff and students has gone up enormously.
It's been, I think it's been really positive. I've got to know so many more kids on different levels by being in this capacity.
Over the past 2 weeks. I saw 2 of them because they were in the week that I was in, and that was lovely to have face-to-face contact. I mean, I email them every day, but to have face-to-face contact with them was just absolutely amazing, because I did their wellbeing check and I did the lockdown experience sheet as well. And Joseph was really emotional. The first time I saw him, he was on the verge of tears talking to him, but it was brilliant. And then Jack was in last week. He was asking to come in.
You get to bake in school, and I love to cook. Just get time to yourself.
I've like enjoyed coming to school because I've been doing Just Dance, and I've been like having fun. Like I wouldn't be having as much fun when I was at home. So I feel like I've had more opportunity to get out and about, and I've been able to go see my friends and stuff, and because I feel like it's more better coming to school than I would be sitting at home, because I won't be doing anything, and I'll just better to come to school because it's more of a chance for me to have a laugh and not like be sitting like glued to my phone all day. I've learned how to like make pom-poms. Like I made a pom-pom, it was the worst pom-pom in the world because like it all just like fall to pieces, but I learned how to do a proper one, and I learned how to sew. Like I made a makeup bag, and I made like a mask for my face mask, like a corona mask. I've learned things I never knew I could do before.
I enjoyed painting every day because I went in every day, and Miss Hines traced them out.
A few have taken them home and brought them back into school. They're so proud. Taken photos of them, got them as their screensavers on their phones now.
I just painted them, and then I went home and showed my family. My dad said it was brilliant, my stepmom said it was brilliant, and then my stepmom said, oh, that actually looks real good. I took loads of time on it. It took us like 4 days.
And just seeing, the other thing is seeing different aged kids working together.
We've had children sitting alongside each other who would never usually interact in school at all, who've been communicated well, they've been really complimentary, they've given good advice. This morning a boy was really concerned about one of the teachers he'd done in the portrait and didn't think it looked right, and other people was reassuring him, saying just keep trying, you're getting it, it looks amazing, I think you're doing so well. And they're in different year groups, one's got lots of needs, you wouldn't usually expect them to have any type of relationship.
And they've also all wanted to finish them as well, so it's like that often they'll walk away from a task half finished, but with this they wanted to see the end result, and then
they're so calm. They're so proud of what they've done, and they know they can achieve it. They're coming back and they want to do more. They're offering to help do the teachers' portraits now. It's lovely.
Personal.
When they succeed, it's so visual. It's there.
And it's also immediate as well, because they always want that immediate, result, and this is immediate.
They can see what they're working towards, because we've got obviously someone shown out. So when they see them and they see how good and how like for like they are, they want to have that success as well, don't they?
Exactly. And I think the other thing is just the sort of the talking and just the chat away.
It's so calm. You come in here and your shoulders just drop. It's lovely. It's really chilled. There's nice music in the background. It's a lovely atmosphere. All ages around our tip. We had a year 8, 2 year 8s, a year 10 girl, a year 9 boy, so they're taking lots of pride in this, and I think because they know it's going to go on display in school and up on the school as part of like the memory of skeletons. It's been like a huge part of their.
And the other thing is the
school
relationship
life.
with the staff. I think it's just totally altered the fact that we're working together. We're all doing the same as them, and we're doing exactly the same standard.
I've got to know so much more about staff by sitting here, and then the children are chatting, and we'll find out so much about them that you would never have that opportunity in a classroom setting to do.
I think they've got everybody's back. The children need to benefit, but I think the staff have needed to benefit as well. And I think I've benefited greatly from not being frightened. Well, the first day I came in, I was absolutely I shook. But oh well, how's this going to work? Now I'm chomping at the bit to get in. And you don't realise how much you love your job until you're not allowed to do it. And I do actually miss the children a great deal. And, but it's organic. It has to be. How you have to change things as things arise and problems arise. But I'm glad I decided to come in. The staff that have come in have benefited just as much as the children. From what I've heard in the community, we're getting it right. I mean, I've got neighbours who are sending children in, and they can breathe. Their children need to be in school, and they can breathe knowing that they're safe and looked after.
I feel like I've just literally started year 7. I've literally just got into my class and got to know everybody, but now I feel like it's all over, because it is like we're not going to be going back into year 7 now, because, well, not unless like it changes, but I don't think it's going to change, which is sad, but it's quite good at the same time, because that means like I'll go through the years quicker.
Just tell them it was one of the worst periods of my life. I hated it when we first came in. I hated it when we first came off, because no one really knew what they were doing. So, and then I would have just said that it would have gotten better. It was getting better during the whole time. Thank you, because you've helped tons of kids that have been in, because we needed help probably with school. So,
thank you for being like the key worker and like coming in here when like you could have had kids or something, like leaving them and coming and help us.
Well, from then I would have preferred to be at home and like just go out with my friends all day and not have to worry about work and that. So I would have been excited. Yeah. But if you told me that now, I'd just be like, no.
We heard of the news and when the schools are going to shut, I was happy at the same time because of that. But then at the same time, I was sad because I knew that my life wasn't going to be the same. I wasn't able to go see my friends. It just feels like it's going to go on forever and ever. But like I said this time, I'd rather be at normal school. But then I said when it actually comes to normal school, I'll literally be crying to get up in the mornings.
The tie digs into my neck, and the top makes me a bit itchy, and the back's inside of my neck as well.
Probably if they ever say they're bored, I'd probably just tell them about what we had to do.
Grandkids or something say they're too old to go to school. And I'll say there's a global pandemic when I was at school, so I suggest they should go to school.
You were locked in your house and couldn't see anyone you played with or anything.
And do you think there's any lessons you can learn from this that you would tell them in the future?
Not really, because it won't happen again.
Well, yeah, it probably would.
Well, no, because it's going to be like one of those things like the flu where you can just easily get cured for it. It's going to be like if you have like a sore throat or something, it'll be like that.
Like tonsillitis.
Yeah, that's what coronavirus will be.
Something that most people get randomly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just tell them that to stay safe. Wash your hands consistently and don't go near anyone with symptoms of a virus or anything.
Oh, you're still muted there.
Thank you, Jenny. I was waiting for you to unmute us, and then I realised it was for us to do. Thank you for sharing that video. I think it's going to be available on the website that we're going to put together, and we'll share that with CBNE, who I'm sure can pass it on. So we're just going to give people the opportunity, I think, to ask questions now. And Andrew, I think you're going to facilitate that.
Yeah, I can do, but I've not had any in the chat. So if anyone wants to ask some, just go ahead, and I would just speak. You just unmute yourself and ask a question. Doesn't look like anyone has too many questions. So that's all good. Last chance. Anyway, if you have anything you'd like to ask or you'd like to know about, you can just contact us and we can pass on anything you want to talk about, and vice versa. All great. All right. Well,
thank you. And on the contact details, if you needed them, if anyone wanted to take down anything, then that's absolutely fine. And you can get in touch at your leisure with any of us. Just distance in the room.
Yeah, we'll do a little distance dance now.
Right, thank you for watching, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.